The road to Umoko was long and winding, bordered by dense forest on either side. The creaky NYSC bus struggled up a hill. Its passengers jostled as the vehicle rattled over potholes. Chike sat at the back, clutching his bag and staring out the window. His thoughts were a mix of anticipation and unease. Umuoko was his NYSC posting, a rural village in the southeast, far from the bustling streets of Lagos he had grown up in. When the bus finally came to a stop in the village square, Chike stepped out into a flurry of activity. Women with babies strapped to their backs argued over the price of dried fish, while men huddled under the shade of a large almond tree, laughing and drinking palm wine. Children paused their games to gawk at him, their chatter loud and curious. "Nah, teacher be that?" one of the women asked, her gaze lingering on Chika's freshly pressed uniform. "He fine oh," another replied, her eyes narrowing mischievously. Chike adjusted his cap and forced a polite smile. The attention was overwhelming, but he reminded himself of the advice his friends had given him at the NYSC camp. "Stay focused. Avoid trouble." Chief Okonko's compound was hard to miss. A large gate marked the entrance to a sprawling building with peeling yellow paint. The chief, a stout man with a booming voice, welcomed Chike with open arms. "Teacher Chike," he exclaimed, slapping Chike on the back. "You are most welcome. Umuoko is now your home." Standing a few steps behind the chief was his wife, Madame Nekeiru. She was strikingly beautiful, her skin smooth and glowing in the afternoon sun. Her eyes lingered on Chike a second too long, her lips curving into a subtle smile. "Welcome, Teacher Chike," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "We hope you'll enjoy your time here." Chike nodded politely, but something about her gaze unsettled him. He chucked it up to first day nerves and followed the chief as he led him to his quarters near the school. The first few days in Umuoko passed uneventfully. Chike adjusted to life in the village, getting used to the morning crowing of roosters and the humid afternoons that made his uniform stick to his skin. The school was small, with 3 classrooms and desks carved with the initials of students who had long since graduated. The students were eager but mischievous. During his first class, Chike introduced himself with a smile, writing his name on the chalkboard. "Good morning, class. I'm Chike, your new English teacher." The students chorused a greeting, their voices loud and uneven. Chike noticed the girls in the front row giggling, their whispers barely concealed. One of them, Ada, raised her hand. "Sir, are you married?" she asked, her boldness drawing laughter from the class. Chike cleared his throat, trying to maintain composure. "We're here to learn English, not discuss my personal life," he replied, though his tone was kind. But the question lingered. And over the next few weeks, Chike became aware of the attention he attracted. The girls dressed more carefully, their uniforms starched and neat. Ada, in particular, lingered after class, asking questions about assignments she clearly understood. Outside the classroom, Chike noticed the women of the village stealing glances at him. Mama Nkechi, the market woman who sold him plantains, seemed to take extra care to touch his hand when giving him change. Even the wives of the elders seemed unusually friendly, their smiles warm, but their eyes sharp. One evening, as Chike returned from school, he found a small basket of food on his doorstep. It contained jollof rice, fried fish, and a bottle of palm wine. There was no note, but he had a feeling he knew who it was from. It was a cold, rainy evening when Madame Nkeru first crossed the line. The rain had been relentless all day, turning the village paths into rivers of red mud. Chike sat in his bungalow, marking essays by the dim light of a kerosene lamp. The sound of the rain pounding against the zinc roof was deafening. A knock at the door startled him. He frowned, glancing at the clock. It was late, too late for a visitor. He opened the door cautiously and froze. Standing there, soaked to the bone, was Madame Nkeru. Her wrapper clung to her body, the fabric drenched and nearly transparent. Water dripped from her hair, trailing down her neck and shoulders. Nkeru, what are you doing here? Chike stammered, his voice barely audible over the rain. I couldn't stay in the palace, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. The rain was too heavy, and this was the closest place. Chike's heart raced as he watched her wring water from her wrapper, her movements slow and deliberate. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice faltering. People will talk. Let them talk, she replied, her eyes meeting his. It's just rain. Or do you want me to stand outside? Chike hesitated, torn between his instincts and the magnetic pull of her presence. Sit down, he said finally, motioning to the chair by the table. She smiled, a small, triumphant smile, and sat down. The rain continued to pour, the sound filling the silence between them. Do you miss home? She asked suddenly, her voice soft. It must be lonely here. Chike nodded, avoiding her gaze. Sometimes. I understand, she said, leaning forward slightly. Loneliness can be unbearable. The atmosphere in the room shifted, the air heavy with unspoken words. Chike felt his resolve weakening, the lines he had drawn in his mind beginning to blur. Madam, Nkeru, he began, his voice trembling. This isn't right. What's right or wrong is for me to decide, she said, standing and moving closer. And I've made my decision. Before he could respond, she closed the distance between them, her lips brushing his. For a moment, Chike resisted, his mind screaming at him to stop. But the storm outside mirrored the one inside him, and he found himself unable to pull away. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the village drenched and glistening in the sunlight. Chike walked to the school with a mix of relief and guilt, hoping to bury the memory of the previous night. But the weight of Madame Nkeru's presence lingered like a shadow. He resolved to focus on his work and avoid trouble. In class, however, trouble found him. Ada was bolder than ever. Her uniform seemed tighter, her hair neatly braided, and her smiles lingered. As the lesson ended and the other students filed out, Ada remained in her seat, her pen tapping rhythmically on her notebook. Sir, she began, her tone soft, almost innocent. Can I talk to you? Chike glanced at the doorway, hoping someone would interrupt. Ada, I have things to do. Let's talk tomorrow. But sir, she said, rising and moving closer. It's important. Her eyes locked onto his, her expression a mix of mischief and sincerity. I think I'm in love with you. Chike's breath hitched. He took a step back, his voice firm. Ada, you're my student. This is inappropriate. But why? She countered, her voice rising slightly. I'm not a child, and I know you feel something for me too. Ada, enough, Chike snapped, his tone sharper than he intended. This conversation is over. Go home. Ada's face crumpled, her confidence wavering for the first time. She stormed out, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. Chike exhaled deeply, his hands trembling. He knew the village wouldn't let him bury this moment. Chinwe was quieter than Ada, but no less determined. She had watched from the sidelines, studying Chike's movements and gauging his vulnerabilities. One evening, she showed up at his bungalow with a basket of roasted yams and ground nut sauce. "Sir, I made this for you," she said, her voice soft but deliberate. Chike hesitated, but eventually invited her in. The air was thick with the smell of the food and an unspoken tension. As they ate, Chinwe leaned closer, her laughter ringing out with each joke he made. "Sir, you're different," she said, her eyes shining. "Not like the men here." Chike shook his head, trying to steer the conversation elsewhere. "Chinwe, you should focus on your studies. That's what matters." "But sir," she said, her voice dropping, "what if I want to focus on you?" Before he could respond, she placed her hand on his, her touch lingering. Chike froze, his mind racing. He knew he should stop her, but her confidence and proximity clouded his judgment. "Chinwe, this isn't right," he said, his voice barely audible. "Who decides what's right?" she whispered, leaning in. Their lips met, and for a moment, Chike felt the weight of his struggles lift. But as the kiss deepened, he knew this was a line he could never uncross. By the following week, the village was alive with whispers. The women in the market giggled and exchanged knowing glances when Chike passed by. The men, once indifferent to his presence, now watched him with suspicion. "Ada, no day herself these days," one woman said, as she wrapped vegetables for a customer. "And Chinwe, she dey shine teeth too much," another added. Madame Nkiru wasn't spared from the rumors either. The palace guards had noticed her late-night visits to Chike's bungalow, and the chief's sudden distance from his wife hadn't gone unnoticed. Chief Okonkwo, however, remained silent, his demeanor cold and calculating. He was a man who observed before acting, and the wheels of his plans were already turning. For Chike, the tension was unbearable. The once welcoming smiles of the villagers had turned into judgmental stares. He felt trapped, the walls of his bungalow closing in on him. Yet, the allure of his secret affairs kept him tethered to his self-destruction. The storm finally broke one evening when Madame Nonkiru arrived unannounced at Chike's bungalow. This time, her demeanor was different, nervous, almost desperate. "Chike," she began, her voice trembling, "I think I'm pregnant." Chike's world spun. He stared at her, his mind struggling to process her words. "What? Are you sure?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I've missed my period and I feel different. I know my body." Chike slumped into a chair, his head in his hands. "This can't be happening," he muttered. "We have to figure this out," Nkeru said, her voice firm. "You can't leave me to deal with this alone." Before Chike could respond, there was a knock at the door. His blood ran cold. He opened it to find Chief Okonkwo standing there, his face a mask of fury. "What is my wife doing here?" the chief demanded, his voice like thunder. Chike stammered, searching for an excuse, but Nkeru stepped forward, her composure suddenly calm. "I came to discuss school matters," she said smoothly. The chief's eyes narrowed. At this hour, Chike remained silent, his heart pounding. The chief studied him for a long moment before turning on his heel and leaving. But his parting words chilled Chike to the bone. "We'll talk later." The chief's words echoed in Chike's mind as he paced his bungalow that night. Every sound outside made him flinch. He knew the chief wasn't one to let things slide. The villagers' whispers had grown louder, their judgment creeping closer to the truth. The next morning, Chike went to class, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy. But the students weren't their usual noisy selves. They whispered among themselves, stealing glances at him. Ada sat with her arms crossed, her eyes cold. Chinwe, on the other hand, avoided his gaze entirely. During lunch, Madame Nkiru sent a note through one of the palace guards. "We need to talk. Tonight. Same place." Chike crumpled the note, his heart sinking. He needed to cut ties, but how? The chief's shadow loomed too large. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Chike sat by his window, staring at the basket of uneaten yams Chinwe had left days earlier. His phone buzzed with a text from Ada. "We need to talk. Now." Before he could reply, there was a knock on the door. It was Chinwe. "Sir, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice trembling. "Chinwe, this isn't the time," Chike replied, his patience wearing thin. "It's important," she insisted, stepping inside and closing the door behind her. "I'm pregnant." Chike stared at her, the room spinning. "Pregnant? Chinwe, how can you—" "It's yours," she interrupted, her voice steady now. "And I won't hide it." Panic surged through Chike. "Do you know what you're saying? Do you know what this could mean for both of us?" Chinwe folded her arms, her jaw set. "I know exactly what it means, but you need to take responsibility." Before he could respond, there was another knock. Chike froze. He opened the door a crack and found Ada standing there, her expression unreadable. "I heard," she said simply, stepping inside. "Heard what?" Chike asked, dread filling him. "Ada, leave," Chinwe snapped. "Oh, I'll leave," Ada said, her voice laced with venom. "But not before I tell him. I'm pregnant too." The silence in the room was deafening. Chike staggered back, his hands gripping the edge of the table for support. This can't be happening." "You think we're the only ones?" Ada said, laughing bitterly. "Ask Madame in Cairo how far." At that moment, the door burst open, and Chief Okonkwo stormed in, flanked by the village elders. His face was a mask of rage. The chief's voice thundered through the small bungalow. You think you can come to my village, sleep with my wife, ruin my girls, and walk free?" "Chief, please," Chike stammered, falling to his knees. "I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean?" the chief bellowed. "You're a disgrace, a criminal." The elders looked on grimly, their arms folded. One of them spoke. "We've received multiple complaints about you, Teacher Chike. This can't continue." Chief Okonkwo raised his hand, silencing him. "He will leave tonight, and we will report him to the NYSC board. Let them deal with him." The villagers had gathered outside, their voices rising in a cacophony of anger and betrayal. "Throw him out," they shouted. "Good riddance." As the elders escorted Chike out of the bungalow, the women he had been involved with stood among the crowd. Chinwe and Ada clutched their swollen bellies, their eyes filled with a mix of anger and sadness. Madame Nkeru, hidden in the shadows, watched silently, her face a mask of shame. The villagers jeered as Chike was pushed into a waiting van. "Adventure! Go Kiyu!" one man shouted, drawing laughter from the crowd. As the van drove away, Chike looked back at the village that had once welcomed him. The laughter, the smiles, the quiet evenings, it was all gone, replaced by chaos of his own making. Months later, the NYSC board received a formal letter from the Umuoko elders. It detailed Chike's actions and demanded his immediate dismissal. In the village, the aftermath of Chike's scandal lingered. Chinwe and Ada gave birth to children with unmistakable features. Madame Nkeru quietly left the palace, her child raised away from the whispers of Umuoko. Around the evening fires, the villagers told the story of Teacher Chike, the man who came to teach but left a trail of scandal and heartbreak. Children whispered his name in cautionary tales, and parents reminded their daughters to be careful of smooth-talking strangers. And though life in Umuoko returned to its slow, steady rhythm, the memory of that fateful year lingered, a reminder of how one man's choices could ripple through an entire community.